Welcome to Unit 1, Module 6, Effects of Pollution. Learning Objectives. By the end of this module, you will be able to understand the effects of air, water and land pollution, discern the importance of the effects of pollution. Effects of pollution. Effect of pollution is defined as the direct and or indirect adverse impacts on the health and the ecosystem. Air, water and land pollution are the three major types of pollution. The health effects of the three are depicted in the picture. As shown in the figure, the air pollutants include carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, volatile organic compounds, ozone, particulate matter, lead, etc. All these are found to cause headache, fatigue, respiratory illness, cardiovascular diseases, nausea, skin irritation, cancer, etc. Water pollution results in bacteria, parasites and chemicals which cause gastroenteritis, headache, fatigue, etc. Land contamination because of agricultural residues results in pesticides which causes nausea, cardiovascular diseases, headache, fatigue. Since air, water and land pollution are the three major types of pollution, let us see the effect of each of these in detail. Coming to the first one, effects of air pollution. Ambient air pollution accounts for an estimated 4.2 million deaths per year due to stroke, heart disease, lung cancer and chronic respiratory diseases. Around 91% of the world's population lives in places where the air quality level exceed the WHO limits. The major impacts of air pollution include increased risk of respiratory illness and cardiovascular problems, increased risk of skin diseases, risk of cancer, global warming, acid rain, ozone depletion and hazards to wildlife. Air pollution effects on human health are of two types, those caused by the lessening of solar energy and those caused by the inhalation of pollutants. The amount of ultraviolet, that is UV energy, received at the earth's surface has changed. Mankind have adapted genetically to live in such an environment. Too little UV energy reaching the earth's surface causes rickets in children. This is compensated by adding artificial irradiated ergosterol, vitamin D, to milk and other food products. On the other hand, too much of UV light can cause increased sunburn and skin cancer. Pollution in the troposphere causes a diminution in the amount of light we use for vision that reaches the ground level. In decreased solar illumination at the ground level on the one hand is psychologically depressing and on the other hand requires increased artificial illumination. This is costly and is a cause for more pollution if it is going to be provided by combustion of fossil fuels which is used to generate electric power. As per the WHO 2000, significant respiratory morbidity are caused by urban air contaminants. Zhu and Wang during 1993 indicate an increased risk of respiratory problems in middle-aged non-smokers in Beijing because of air pollution. Other effects caused because of the ambient air pollution as per the WHO 2000 include heart muscle damage, postnatal mortality, acute respiratory infection related mortality, effects on children's lung function, cardiovascular problems, respiratory conditions in the elderly. Pereira and his colleagues during 1998 found that air pollution increased the intrauterine mortality in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Romeo and few other researchers report a worsening of asthma in children in Mexico City during 1996 report based on air pollution. Experts have connected asthma to urban air pollution as per the research work presented by McConnell and others in 2002 as well as by Rios and others in 2004. A major concern they have attributed to is the role of ozone exposure, which has led to asthma attacks. Now, let us see how each of the air pollutants affect mankind and the environment. 1. Carbon monoxide. The sources are: the incomplete combustion of fossil fuels in automobiles results in the production of carbon monoxide. The source hence includes automobile exhaust, petrochemical reactions in the atmosphere, or biological oxidation by marine organisms. It affects the respiratory activity as hemoglobin has more affinity for carbon monoxide than for oxygen. Thus, carbon monoxide CO combines with hemoglobin and reduces the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood. This results in blurred vision, headache, unconsciousness and death due to asphyxiation, that is lack of oxygen. Number 2, carbon dioxide. Carbon burning of fossil fuels and depletion of the forest results in carbon dioxide. When there is imbalance in the oxygen carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, it further leads to global warming. Now coming to sulfur dioxide. The sources of sulfur dioxide comes from burning fossil fuels and forest fires. When fossil fuels are used for power generation, it also releases sulfur dioxide. Also in smelting plants, industrial boilers, petroleum refineries, volcanic eruptions, sulfur dioxide is released. The effects of sulfur dioxide include respiratory problems and severe headaches. It also causes reduced productivity among plants, yellowing and reduced storage time for paper, yellowing and damaging of limestone and marble. Further, it also increases the rate of corrosion of iron, steel, zinc and aluminum. It further causes damage of leather items. Now coming to the fourth pollutant, which is hydrocarbon. The hydrocarbons are present as polynuclear atomic compounds, that is called PAC, and polynuclear aromatic hydrocarbons, which is called as PAH. The sources of hydrocarbons are from automobile exhaust and industries, leaking fuel tanks, leakage from toxic waste dumping sites and from coal tar lining in the water supply pipes. The effect of hydrocarbons are carcinogenic and may cause leukemia. The fifth pollutant is CFC. The source of CFC include refrigerators, air conditioners, foam shaving cream, spray cans, cleaning solvents, etc. CFC destroys the ozone layer in the atmosphere. The ozone layer prevents the harmful UV rays from entering into the atmosphere. The ozone layer protects the earth by preventing the UV rays from the sun to enter the earth. If the ozone layer is eaten away by the human actions, the effect on the planet could be catastrophic. The sixth pollutant is the NOx. The sources of NOx are similar to sulfur dioxide. NOx is found to be present in the automobile exhaust, burning of fossil fuels, forest fires, electric generation plants, smelting plants, industrial boilers, petroleum refineries and volcanic eruptions. It causes petrochemical smog, leaf damage and respiratory problems. The seventh pollutant, which is the particulate matter. Leaded gasoline increases the danger of lead poisoning, especially in young children, and produces a high lead exposure circumstances in metropolitan areas. The key issue is how the exposure to chemicals might affect the brain, resulting in abnormal behavior and slowed or delayed intellectual or motor development, which is reported in the WHO report in 1995. Adult hypertension has also been linked to lead exposure, and this effect may be the most significant for the burden of disease from lead at the community level as per the WHO report of 2002. Now coming to the eighth pollutant, asbestos particles. Mining are found to release the asbestos particles. Asbestosis is found to cause cancer of the lungs. Ninth pollutant is silicon dioxide. Silicon dioxide gets released during stone cutting, pottery, glass manufacturing and from cement industries. The 10th pollutant is mercury. The sources are it gets released because of combustion of fossil fuels and from plants. It causes presence of brain and kidney damage. Air pollutants affect plants by entering through the stomata. Stomata are the leaf pores through which the gases diffuse. Sometimes said the stomata are the places where the leaf breathes. So, when the pollutants enter the stomata, they destroy the chlorophyll and affect the photosynthesis process. During the daytime, the stomata are wide open to facilitate photosynthesis. During this period, the air pollutants enter the leaf through the stomata. Pollutants erode away the waxy coating of the leaves called the cuticle. The cuticle prevents the excessive water loss and damage from diseases, pest, drought and frost. Pollutants damage the leaf structure. This causes necrosis, which is dead areas of leaf, chlorosis, which is loss or reduction of chlorophyll causing the yellowing of the leaf, or epinasty, which is downward curling of the leaf, and abscission, which is dropping of the leaves. Air pollutants, namely particulates, sulfur dioxide, NO2, ozone O3, all of them damage the plant. Particulates, when present in huge quantum in the atmosphere, gets deposited on the leaves. They form encrustations and block the stomata. This does not allow the sunlight to penetrate into the leaf. The damage because of this can cause the death of the plant. Sulfur dioxide causes bleaching of leaves, chlorosis, injury and necrosis of leaves. NO2 results in increased abscission and suppressed growth. O3 causes flecks on leaf structure, premature aging, necrosis and bleaching. Peroxyacetyl nitrate, which is PAN, is created when hydrocarbons, oxides of nitrogen and oxygen undergo photochemical reaction in the atmosphere while being influenced by sunlight. PAN impairs the chlorophyll, which hinders the development of photosynthesis. PAN causes silvering of lower surface of leaf, damage to young and more sensitive leaves and suppresses growth. Fluorides cause necrosis of the leaf tip, while ethylene results in epinasty, leaf abscission and the dropping of the flowers. Next, coming to smog. Smog is smoke and fog. When they combine, they form smog. Smog reduces the visibility of the surroundings. Additionally, it severely irritates the throat and eyes. Acid rain is caused by the oxidation of gases like sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide, which produces sulfuric and nitric acids along with water. These acids then precipitate as acid rain. Building components, vegetation and animals are all injured because of acid rain. The soil also becomes acidic because of it. Wang and his colleagues during 1997 found that exposure to particulate matter, PM, sulfur dioxide or both increased the chance of low birth rate in Beijing. Now coming to the effects of water pollution. According to a report, about 4 billion people will experience water scarcity by the end of 2026. Currently, over 1.2 billion people worldwide lack access to clean drinking water and good sanitation. It is also estimated that over 1,000 children die in India each year due to water related issues. Groundwater is essential for sustenance of life on earth. Contamination of this water is becoming a critical societal issue which has to be addressed immediately. Contamination of drinking water causes several waterborne diseases. Pollution of the water can drastically affect human health and can kill people and live species. A study revealed that waterborne illness causes around 1.8 million deaths worldwide. Deteriorating water quality is not only damaging the environment and health, but also has a detrimental effect on the global economy. The president of World Bank has warned of the economic impact of water quality deterioration. He states deteriorating water quality is stalling economic growth and exacerbating the poverty in many countries. The reason is because when the biological oxygen demand, the BOD, the indicator that measures the organic pollution in water, exceeds a certain threshold, it was found that the growth of GDP, that is gross domestic product, in that region falls by a third. Pollution of the water is from industries, mining operations, agriculture, domestic waste, to name a few. Now, let us see the pollution of water from industries. Companies utilize water to cool their equipment and hence they discharge the hot water, which is waste, into the water bodies, which causes thermal pollution that harms both plant and the animal life. Organic and inorganic chemicals abound in the industrial runoffs. Both surface and groundwater resources are contaminated by these pollutants. Acute exposure to pollutants in drinking water can irritate and inflame the eyes, nose, skin and digestive tract. Without sufficient treatment, industrial effluents are released directly into the water bodies like ponds, lakes and rivers. Industrial effluents include heavy metals and compounds like arsenic, cadmium, copper, chromium, mercury, zinc and nickel. The most significant health impacts such as liver poisoning are caused by chronic exposure to copper, arsenic or chromium in the drinking water. Chemicals including cadmium, copper, mercury and chlorobenzene have harmful effects on the kidney as per the WHO 2003 report. These wastes contaminate the water sources, rendering them unsafe for ingestion by human. Pollution of water from mining operations. An oil spill is the unintentional release of petroleum products into estuaries and oceans from drilling and exploration activities offshore as well as from overturned oil ships. Pollution of water from agriculture. Agricultural products such as fertilizers and pesticides contain elevated amounts of ammonia and phosphate which can increase crop yields, which is good. However, these nutrients, when they get into the waterways such as streams, lakes and other water runoffs, they cause imbalance in the aquatic ecosystem, stimulating the growth of algal bloom. Pollution of water from domestic waste. Domestic sewage contains a lot of detergents and organic material. The amount of nutrients in the water bodies rise as a result of organic matter's decomposition. The consequences of water pollution are destruction of biodiversity, contamination of the food chain, depletion of drinking water supplies, disease and infant mortality. Destruction of biodiversity. The fertilizers from the agriculture gets into the water runoff and the nutrients enter into the water ecosystem. Harmful algal bloom, which is HAB, occurs when the toxic producing algae grows excessively in a body of water in the presence of the extra nutrients which has come from the runoffs. This creates imbalances in the delicate aquatic ecosystem. This process is called eutrophication. Further, it reduces the amount of oxygen present, BOD, that is the biological oxygen demand in the water. This causes the other aquatic organisms to perish because of the low BOD level. Next, coming to the contamination in the food chain. When eutrophication happens, it causes certain species to dwindle or die out. This disrupts the food chain. Consumption of polluted water by marine and aquatic organisms causes damage to the species. The toxins gets into the aquatic organisms. When they are later consumed by the larger species in the food chain, including mankind, the toxins gets into the food and is harmful to the health of all species. This causes damage to the internal organs. Similarly, when we consume the pesticides used in agricultural products, it causes disruption in the food chain and also becomes a toxin to us. Third, the lack of drinking water supplies. As population is increasing at an alarming rate, it is necessary to identify the drinking water sources and prioritize the water supplies. Unfortunately, contamination of our lakes, reservoirs and other waterways means there is a decreasing amount of drinking water. The United Nations says billions of people around the world have no access to clean water for drinking or sanitation purposes, particularly in the rural areas. Next, coming to fourth, diseases. If drinking water supplies cannot meet the demand, people will be forced to consume the unsafe sources of water. This is especially true in impoverished parts of the world such as Africa, Asia, Latin America. The UN estimates that around 1 in 3 people do not have access to clean drinking water. The WHO estimates that about 2 billion people have no option but to drink the water that is contaminated by pollutants such as excrement. This causes diseases such as cholera, typhoid, hepatitis A and dysentery. 5. Infant mortality. According to the United Nations, diarrheal diseases among the infants are linked to the lack of hygiene. This causes death of about 1000 children a day worldwide. Now, let us take one case in India, pollution of the Ganges. The Ganges river in India is the world's 6th most polluted river. This is not very surprising considering the fact that hundreds of local companies discharge their effluents into the Ganges. Furthermore, religious events like funerals and cremations all happen along the shores, which contributes to the pollution. Apart from the environmental consequences, this river, because of its high pollutant content, may spread illness such as typhoid and cholera. Pollution in the Ganges river is causing the extinction of rare species available only in the Ganges. For example, the Ganges river shark, Ganges river dolphin are some examples of such endangered species which is available nowhere else but in the Ganges river. Now, let us come to the third, which is the effects of land pollution. The degradation of the land surface above and below the ground level is termed as land pollution. The accumulation of solid and liquid waste that contaminate the land is the reason. The greater the permeability of the soil, greater is the contamination. Land pollution is caused by agricultural activities, industrialization, mining activities, urbanization, deforestation, nuclear waste, landfills, human sewage, soil erosion, etc. Chemicals and other potentially toxic compounds could enter the groundwater system when they are carelessly dumped on the ground in unlawful landfills or in storage facilities. This process by which the groundwater gets contaminated is referred to as leaching. It can occur on farms, industrial sites and landfills and have an impact on the health of humans and animals as well as plants. There are several consequences of land pollution to the environment, to the mankind and to animals. Some of them include effect on human health, increase in landfill sites, soil pollution, air pollution, water pollution, environmental degradation and effect on the wildlife. Now coming to the first one, effect on human health. There are lots of waste strewn around, especially among developing countries. Many countries have a proper waste collection system, but sometimes even there the waste end up in landfills without proper regulation. Such waste contain dangerous chemicals, pesticides and metals that have an adverse effect on human. Plastic waste, for example, may contain acrylic, polyvinyl chloride, polycarbonate and phthalates. These are associated with respiratory disorders, skin disease, cancers, birth defects in pregnant women. Chemical components like cadmium, asbestos, mercury, cyanide, sometimes arsenic, etc. are commonly found in pesticides, pharmaceuticals, fertilizers, industrial waste, and these have a very serious effect on human health. They have cancer causing elements also. This may lead to lung, kidney diseases as well as liver damage. The second one is increase in landfill sites. When land is contaminated with solid agricultural and industrial waste, the landfill gets filled up. The landfill becomes the breeding grounds for mice, rodents, flies, birds which transmit diseases very easily. The landfill becomes filled with toxic chemicals. Over a period of time, it reaches the human body through the plants and food grown in these polluted lands. Further, these pollutants may also enter the water bodies. The polluted dust are also inhaled by us and by animals, which are very harmful. The huge pile of waste across the urban limits becomes a eyesore for people who go around those areas and more so for the tourist industry. Third is the soil pollution. Soil pollution comes under land pollution. When there is an overdose of fertilizer chemicals, the land gets degraded because of the chemicals used. The upper layer of the soil gets damaged. The agricultural waste, domestic, healthcare and chemical waste are the major contributors to soil pollution. Healthcare waste such as broken instruments and metals, industrial waste such as broken electronics, domestic waste such as use and throw away plastic items all contaminate the land, upsetting the land ecosystem. Because of this, the land loses its fertility and the vegetation cover. Next, fourth, air pollution. When wastes are dumped on the land, it causes air pollution, and from the waste, because of the gases that emanate, it brings out a disgusting smell and odor. Apart from the smell, in some instances, the landfills are burnt, leading to smoke, which further contributes to air pollution. 5. Water pollution. When the soil gets contaminated with chemicals and toxic products, it automatically seeps underground and gets into the waterways, streams and rivers, thus leading to water pollution. Further, leaching takes place, which makes the toxic elements and chemicals to infiltrate into the aquifers and the water tables. The contaminated water evaporates and falls back as precipitation to the ground along with the impurities and hence gets into the ecosystem cycle. Next, 6. Environmental degradation. Deforestation is a concern of top priority. The reason being, increase in population has caused the cutting down of trees to give way for providing for shelters and for commercial establishments on the one hand, further for providing the essential needs such as paper, furniture, building components for people. This leads to intense heat directly touching the earth's surface and increasing the ground temperature. It erodes the soil and damages the top layer. Animals become vulnerable to the temperature and hence are driven inwards to find further new shelters. They become vulnerable, being exposed to predators in the new areas. Continued deforestation results in biodiversity loss and atmospheric imbalance, which will necessarily jeopardize healthy living. The reason being there will be greenhouse gas effect, climate change, global warming, to name a few. Effect on wildlife. Wildlife have been drastically affected because of loss in their natural habitat and the environment. The continued human activities on the land have left the land degraded and polluted, forcing wildlife to move and adapt to newer zones. Consequently, some animal species have become extinct and some are on the verge of extinction. The internet gives us several examples, to name a few: African forest elephant, Amur leopard, black rhino, Bornean orangutan are a few species which are getting into extinction. Discharge of chemicals into the land makes the land unappealing to plants and animals. The chemicals contaminate the plants and water, which are consumed by the animal hierarchy from the bottom to the top. Thus, the pollutants enter into the food chain, eating the vegetables, fish and mutton, which is absorbed with chemicals, lands up into the human's body. The process is known as biomagnification and is a serious threat to the ecological sustainability. Now, let us see a few questions and answers on this topic. What are the effects of short term and long term exposure to air pollution? The short term exposure causes are coughing, wheezing, difficulty in breathing, irritation to eyes, nose and throat, headache, dizziness, fatigue. The long term exposure causes respiratory diseases, asthma, emphysema, cardiovascular damage, harm to liver, spleen and blood, nervous system damage, cancer, birth defects, also death. Now, let us see question 2. How can pollution affect plants? The effects of pollution on plant would include mottled foliage, burning at leaf tips or margins, twig die off, stunted growth of the plant or premature leaf drop, delayed maturity, abortion or early drop of flowers, reduced yield or quality getting declined. Question 3. What are the chemical effects on life because of land pollution? One of the biggest threats to the ecosystem caused by land pollution is the chemical contamination. Plastics, toxins in waste like antifreeze and other chemicals seep into the ground. These sometimes include the persistent organic pollutants, which is called the POPs, that comprise a special group of chemicals. POPs are chemicals used by industry and sometimes in agriculture. Examples of POPs include DDT, dioxins, polychlorinated biphenyls (PCBs). WHO report of 2008 have stated that POPs are unintended byproduct of pesticides. They can be produced by burning coal, peat, wood, hospital waste, hazardous waste or municipal waste, as well as it may come from car emissions. POPs also accumulate in waterways and oceans through agriculture runoffs. These pollutants are carried long distances and also stay for long in the soil. POPs are a threat to the marine life. It affects the human immune system, the reproductive system and causes tumors among marine species, animals and among human beings. Some changes noticed are thinning of the bird eggshells, population decline in seals, snails and alligators. POPs, even in small doses among mankind, may lead to cancer, damage to the central and peripheral nervous system, diseases of the immune system, reproductive disorders, and it will interfere with the child development. To summarize, in this module we have understood the effects of air, water and land pollution, discerned the seriousness of the effects of pollution. So, with this we close this module. Thank you.